In this video, we're going to have a look at how do we simplify expressions involving surds by rationalising the denominators. Now, rationalising the denominator of a fraction changes the denominator to a rational number, but does not change the value of the fraction. So this is done by completing the following steps. The first step is to make sure that each surd has been written in its simplest form. Once it's written in the simplest form, you multiply the numerator in the denominator by the surd that's contained within the denominator. So the square root of A divided by the square root of B, you'll simplify it by going the square root of A over the square root of B times the square root of B divided by the square root of B, and that's going to equal the square root of AB over B, because when we times the square root of B by the square root of B, we end up with a rational number being B. So let's have a look at a couple of examples of how do we simplify expressions by rationalising the denominator. So in our first example, we want to rationalise the denominator in 3 divided by the square root of 2. Now the first step, we need to make sure that our surds are already in its simplest form, and the square root of 2 cannot be simplified, so I can go ahead and rationalise my denominator. So I'm going to do that by multiplying the numerator and the denominator both by the square root of 2. So 3 over the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 over the square root of 2. That is going to equal 3 times the square root of 2 over 2. Because the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is equal to 2. 3 times the square root of 2 is 3 times the square root of 2. So that's an example of how we simplify an expression by rationalising the denominator. So let's have a look at our second example. 2 times the square root of 3 divided by the square root of 8. First, we need to check to make sure that our surds are already in simplest form. Square root of 3 is, but the square root of 8 isn't. It can be simplified further. So the square root of 8 can be simplified using the factors 4 times 2, because 4 is a perfect square. So that's going to equal square root of 4 times 2, which equals the square root of 4 times the square root of 2, which equals 2 times the square root of 2. So going back, I can rewrite my original expression using my simplified values. So that is going to equal 2 times the square root of 3 divided by 2 times the square root of 2. Now when I rationalise my denominator, I only take the surd, not the whole denominator. So that is going to equal 2 times the square root of 3 over 2 times the square root of 2, and I'm going to times that by the square root of 2 over the square root of 2. So that is going to equal 2 times the square root of 3 times the square root of 2 over 2 times 2, because the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is equal to 2. So that's going to equal to 2 times the square root of 6 over 4, which can be simplified to equal the square root of 6 divided by 2. So I need to finish off by checking to make sure that my answer is in the simplest form, which is. So my final answer is the square root of 6 divided by 2.